I don't know that you can have any conversation about this Mariners offseason without first answering the question, how much do you believe in what they did the final 6 weeks of the season? Because it affects every other decision that you would make then moving forward in terms of what you think you need to do, how much you need to do. So I feel like I got to start there with you, Ryan. How much do you believe the offensive success in the last 6 weeks of the season was real?
I think I'm a believer in it in the sense that I thought it was kind of more who they were supposed to be for the first 5 months of the season that they weren't. You know, like Julio Rodriguez was a real player, a real contributor. It wasn't a strikeout machine. I felt like, you know, you weren't getting much from J.P. Crawford as much, but like Cal Raleigh was still pretty consistent. Like I felt like the first 4 guys in that lineup that they were rolling out every day, maybe not Victor Robles just because I don't know him and what he does is so different and kind of unpredictable. But I mean, like you look at a Rosarena and Cal and Julio, those guys were legit guys. And you know, and then Luke Raley as well. I mean, like if you take away Luke Raley's first month of the season, he was pretty solid. So like, yeah, those 4 guys, you know, that's a pretty believable part of the big part, you know, of a portion of your lineup. And so, yeah, I think it's closer to who they should have been that last month than when we saw the first 5 months where they couldn't hit at all. They were striking out at a ridiculous rate. And I don't know if it's just a simplified message of Edgar Martinez. I do think that when the center fielder is pretty good, it just makes everything look a lot smoother in a lineup. And then you had with Julio and Cal batting kind of, you know, 3-4 in that area together. And then you added Randy. That's 3 viable hitters, 3 legitimate hitters with real threats that you were running out in a row. And I think for most of the season, we couldn't pick 3 batters that were going well and stacked together in the lineup for like the first 4 months of the season.
How many of the 4 infielders will we see day one, opening day, that were not in the Mariners organization last year?
Well, it depends on who's pitching, right? If it's a righty or a lefty. I don't know. I would think 2 out of the 4 will be different. Mm-hmm. I think that's our goal is 2 out of the 4 will be different. You know, Adam Jude talked to Jerry DiPoto the other day, and I've had some conversations with people in the organization and where they're at financially and where they're at kind of with the market and how they might attain players. They're looking at maybe adding two infielders, hopefully adding 2 infielders that they consider impact. Now, the definition of impact might be different to Jerry DiPoto than to, you know, Brock or me or you or what they value as impact. But I think they want to add 2 infielders, ostensibly at least one that can play every single day or close to it, and then go from there. I think they feel comfortable, you know, ideally they think they'd like to add, you know, more, but given where the market is, given what they may have financially, you know, you don't want to trade your entire organization. I think, you know, if they can get 2 out of the 3 spots to upgrade or supplement, you know, they can always add that 3rd spot maybe in the middle of the season if it's not going well. So that's kind of where we're looking at. The problem is you look at the free agent market, first base, probably the most options in terms of impact, but the most expensive. 2nd, not great. 3rd, not great, you know, unless you're going to trade.
Or unless you like Alex Bregman.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, I don't even know if Alex Bregman's teammates like Alex Bregman, but
right.
He's a pretty good player. You know, like he is that, like he's got, I mean, not to skew old, we just went Mr. Mom, but he's got that Eddie Haskell quality about him. And I know this because I go up and see my dad every day and he watches Leave It to Beaver reruns and then Gunsmoke every day. I've seen every episode now because of it, but like, you know, Bregman's good. I don't think he has any, like, I don't think he, even if the Mariners could offer him the $300 million, he would go to somebody else if they offered him $300 million. I don't think he should get $300 million. He might, but he's a really good player and he would fit kind of like, you know, I don't know that the power completely translates to Seattle, but he's a good player. He knows how to win and he performs. But I don't see them going that route. I honestly, the way I'm looking at it now, you know, it's, do they trade for Alec Boehm? Do they try and trade for Jordan Westberg? I don't know. It's like those are kind of more viable. Do they go to the Reds? You've got a bunch of infielders with the Twins. some of these teams with the way the RSN is, the Mariners seem like they're pretty stable. At least they say that with their RSN and how their payroll budget is going to be. Yeah, I don't think it'll be enormous. But some of these other teams, like the Twins, I don't think that they're going to be able to add, and they may even have to decrease. So there could be opportunities out there. But I'm like, other than Bregman, there isn't like that one free agent bat. You say, okay, this is just a perfect fit. Just go get him. And as I wrote in the paper today, it's not like last year where you're looking at third base, like Luis Urias is out of shape. He can't throw. Rojas looks okay. Here's Matt Chapman sitting on the market for a short-term deal. I think that we're not seeing that again, like because of like what happened last year and how Chapman performed, how Snell performed. I think teams are going to spend the money this year and go, the few free agents that are out there, they're going to get deals. They're not going to do the pillow contract.
I know last year, we're talking to Ryan Divish from the Seattle Times. And Ryan, I know last year you were a big proponent of the idea of acquire an arm to trade an arm to acquire a bat. They didn't do that. I know that we've heard from Justin Hollander that they don't really want to do that. What are the chances they do it anyway?
Yeah, I mean, there's stuff you have to do you don't want to do. I mean, that's kind of where they're at. They put themselves in that position where, as Jerry Dipoto said, it's plan Z. But, when you're looking at supplementing this roster, specifically your everyday lineup, and you're looking around, you might get to plan Z because all those other plans are not there. I think if the right team, or if the right deal was out there for Luis Castillo, I think they would make it, just because it's a lot of money committed, and this is a team that doesn't have a lot of money to work with. So yeah, you can make that work even if it was a bigger contract swap. I don't think they want to trade any younger guys yet. Even Logan Gilbert, who is getting more expensive, I think they like that core group. I think they still hold out a hope that they could sign Logan to an extension. So I think that would be the one pitcher that I think would get traded. But I guess, again, like Jerry Dipoto has always said, never say never. And what has the old GM said? If somebody is going to be dumb enough to give you the world for a player, then you probably better do it. There's always that GM that gets desperate out there. I mean, I wrote that Robinson Cano was untradeable, and who knew that his GM or that his agent was going to get a GM job and want to make a splash and do that. So it's possible that they can get something for one of those pitchers that's just so ridiculous you can't say no, and then you can go out and make a run. And I mean, there is a pitcher out there that is well within their budget. It's really good and young, and it's even playing field as much as it's been in terms of finances. And Roki Sasaki, they can make a pitch at it, and if they don't, it's professionally irresponsible on their part if they don't make a run at him.
Were you buying, Ryan, the report over the weekend that I saw from one Lyle and TJ on the Marine Layer podcast that Julio Rodriguez just so happened to be in Japan over the weekend?
I mean, I wasn't going to give – I looked around Missoula to see if I could buy Lyle one of those armadillo head hats, where they cut up an armadillo and put it on your head to block out the waves, the FBI radio waves and everything like that for the conspiracy theorists. But Julio had this trip to Japan planned long before Roki Sasaki was posted. In fact, it was kind of funny. We were joking when Sasaki was posted, and one of the guys had mentioned Julio was going to be in Japan. I said, which one of the Twitter creators is going to try and piece this together and see if it worked first? So, Lyle, you beat out Mariner Muse. I had Mariner Muse in the pool, but Lyle won, so I think Larry Stone called that.
All right, hear me out. Trip was planned before. However, Spin Zone, once the Mariners saw that Julio was in Japan, they called him up and said, hey, we need you to go sit down with Roki.
I mean, Lyle, you're a bow tie away from working for Fox News at this point. I tell you what.
I don't have any response to that.
I think you pretty much just ended Lyle's
Come on, Lyle,
participation
fight
in this
back.
conversation.
Lyle, fight back.
Lyle, you're like Jake Paul's going to be on Friday getting beat up by the old guy. What's going on here?
I mean, right now, Lyle, we're going to put you in the penalty box and give you one of Condotta's pair of gigantic cargo shorts to wear around the next time you go to the park.
Yeah, that's the real punishment.
Yeah.
So is
Taking away
Roki?
his
To be
brands.
fair, when I texted Divish last night, I said, can you come on and talk M's and make fun of Lyle a little bit? Because I just assumed it was going to head that direction anyways.
Yeah, you were right.
So, Divish, I was looking at some odds this morning. I mean, the Mariners are in the top 5. It's obviously Dodgers, Padres, Mets. I think a couple of the different places I looked at for Sasaki, he was in the top 5. Pretty reasonable odds. Do you think that there is a legitimate shot and conversation to be had?
Well, there is, in a sense that, like, you know, it's not about money. And, you know, the Mariners have about, I think, $7.5 million in bonus pool money. They can add to that. They could trade teams for bonus pool money, international signing money. Only can increase it by about half of what they have, so they could bump it up to about $10.5 million, I think. But, like, the rest of it is equal playing field. You know, it's about then it's about the presentation, about why this guy is going to be successful, because – you know, they do have to pay the posting fee, which that is what, you know, you're kind of would make a team that doesn't have a bunch of money hesitant. But I'm sorry, like, you know, it's not the posting fee and, you know, it's not how that pay the posting fee. You still have this guy. You have all the club control in the world, which everybody loves. I think you have to make a run at it. And for the Mariners, they can pitch the idea that they're good at developing pitchers. They can really laud the park for being a good pitcher-friendly place. Seattle's traditional Japanese players. Like, they had a great presentation with Ohtani the first time. You know, it was equal playing field, and a lot of people thought that maybe he would even consider going there. But, you know, the Ichiro factor a little bit, and I think he just wanted to stay close to his agent, Nesbalello. Like, that changed a lot of that stuff. But I from everything I was told, like, the Mariners' presentation to Ohtani was outstanding, and I'm sure they can do the same. I mean, you're talking about a team that can really market itself to its fan base. I'm sure they can market itself to a player where, you know, here's why you should come here and here's what you should do. And, you know, and maybe that's enough. You know, I don't think, obviously, Sasaki is worried about the fact that they have a full starting rotation. I mean, like, that can be amended real quick, but, like, I think you have to make a pitch at him. And I think realistically they have as good a shot as anybody outside of the first couple teams you named. I mean, like, you know, if he's concerned, if he wants the weather, if he wants to stay West Coast, San Diego would be a great place to go. You know, they've had success. It's a good team. I mean, I love San Diego. So, you know, those kinds of things as well. But, you know, the Mariners have as good a chance as any in terms of beyond the Dodgers and the Padres, I think. And then, you know, maybe the Yankees on the name recognition factor. But nobody really knows about this kid and what it really matters to him. But, you know, it does speak to that he wants to come and pitch in the big leagues because he's not, you know, he's pushed to be posted so he can get out of there. And he's going to be like Ohtani where he doesn't get paid right away.
103 miles an hour he throws?
Yeah. I mean, like, I remember listening to Passan talk about it, you know, and he talked about, like, you know, he's not like Morosi talking about it. Like Morosi, like, you got to get him a room when he talks about Roki Sasaki. But Passan, who doesn't quite get kind of up to that level, I mean, like, dude's genuinely excited. He was throwing out, you know, compliments and stuff about this kid that you know, Jeff is not always real motivated to do. And so for him to speak so highly of this pitcher, you're kind of like, okay, this is a real dude. Because, like, some guys, like I said, I love JP to death, but, you know, he gets a little more excitable about things. It's like when Brock sees the perfect protein shake at Jamba Juice and just gets giddy and starts, you know, like listening to Rocky IV soundtrack. That's what Morosi
going.
Morosi on a daily basis.
Jeff's a little more cynical, like Mike. And I think for Jeff to be that kind of optimistic about how good this kid is speaks to how good the kid is.
Okay, let's talk a little bit. I know you got some laundry to do and the meatloaf to get ready for tonight. So let's talk about timing for Mariners fans. This hot stove is starting to get going. GM meetings happen, winter meetings, which Lyle, I think, will join you at in his cargo pants and cargo shorts. What is some realistic timing of next things to watch for a Mariner fan?
Well, I mean, I think the tender date it's coming up here, I think a week. That's always something to monitor. I mean, I think we will see a couple of the Mariners relievers non-tendered. And I think Trent Thornton, you know, is projected to be around $2.5 million. Don't know that they're going to do that. Even somebody like Taylor Saucedo, $1 million. Like, when you're operating with a limited budget per se, you know, like where you're not operating with 175, 180 million, and you can only add incrementally. They're already adding a lot with Cal and with George and with Logan being arbitration, going up in arbitration numbers. So I think that's something you have to monitor, and then that helps shape it. I do think that's one thing they may spend some free agent dollars on, is another leverage guy, because Brash won't be ready till about May. Santos is still an idea, not a reliever yet. And I mean, if you go back and look at the numbers and you watch it on a daily basis, it was just lacking. The sixth and seventh inning was just lacking in terms of depth and power arms that got you strikeouts. And, the magic of finding the Justin Topas of the world didn't quite happen last year. Obviously, Troy Taylor was pretty good, but they need to add some significant experience and some guys that get some outs from the bullpen, because that's, I think that's pretty priority. And because to sit there and think that these guys, are going to do what they did with 90 some quality starts, I think that's unfair expectation of this rotation after what they did last year.
Speaking of expectations, maybe the last thing for you here, and it's probably a conversation we're going to have in greater depth tomorrow, but how big an offseason is this for Jerry Dipoto?
Well, I would think it's huge. I mean, honestly, I thought that if they didn't make the playoffs, both he and Scott would be done. I know in talking with Scott after he was let go, Scott had said, we kind of figured that if we didn't make the playoffs, we would be done. It wasn't a we, actually. It was just Scott. And so I do think it's big, because we're entering territory now where, it's not, teams just don't carry decision makers this long without making the postseason, unless you're like the LA Clippers or whatever. This is getting to the point. And I mean, honestly, and it's Twitter, it's whatever. And I know Lyle deals with that on an everyday basis, but Mariners Twitter can be a little unhinged, but it's beyond Twitter in the fact that there's just a definite frustration with Dipoto, and kind of that he's still around, and questioning whether or not he has what it takes to put together a big league roster. Nobody's saying he can't put together a farm system and draft and everything else, but whether or not he can put together a big league roster to win, whether he's hamstrung by the Mariners ownership or not. I mean, I think that's the one thing. The Mariners, didn't really love that we had the story that they were extending him, although, as you've said and we've said, when they kept him, didn't fire him, and then named Dan the full-time manager, that was pretty much the logical conclusion to make. But they didn't love it because they knew the fan reaction would be not great. So I just think, when you have that much growing discontent among the fan base, and it's all stemmed at one person, that's a tough way to operate. Can't put him out there. Can't, and he, to me, and I know you like to have him on the show, Jerry tells you what they're going to do, and he's very open, and he's very candid about it. You might not like the way he says it,
mm-hmm.
and you might not like the tone that he offers or his explanation for everything, but he kind of tells you what they want to do or what they expect to do or what their thinking is. And for me as a writer, that's pretty important, because you're not surprised by anything. So when he says they're going to try and add 2 infielders, that's what I believe they're going to try and do.
Do you know the timing on the deal that was done?
No, and I can't get it confirmed. I've heard multiple kind of reports. I've heard it was just a 1-year deal with an option. I've heard 2. I don't think it's 3 or 4 by any means. I think it is a little bit of wait and see and prove it.
Do you know when it was signed?
I was told it was basically agreed upon when they did those meetings in Detroit about 10 days or 12 days before they fired Scott. And that was he was given assurances that he was coming back. Because, you're letting him – they were doing those meetings in August trying to plan their off-season approach and their philosophy. And, you're not going to do that with a GM you're not coming back. And honestly, if you're going to bring in a new ultimate decision maker, you want to give them requisite time to vet the organization, self-scout it,
mm-hmm.
like they did when they first hired Jerry. I mean, when they first hired Jerry, he was hired in end of August, and he had all of September to evaluate the big league team and the organization, make a decision on Wade McClendon, whether he would be back. And so
tough decision.
I think, yeah, and I think that's kind of what they had told them is they made the decision they're going to bring him back, and I think that's what they moved forward. It was similar in And going during the 18 season, when they decided to do the step back, they made that decision largely, or they started discussing it in August of that year in those meetings, because they do those kind of meetings in August. So that's kind of when I think he was told he was coming back. I don't know when he officially signed it.
All right, we got to go. As Lloyd might have said, enjoy the journey here in your off season, and enjoy the winter meetings with Lyle. And we'll talk to you again. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, I got some laundry to do. I'll see you guys.
All right, there you go. The great Ryan Divish, live from Montana.